Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. And before I turn my attention to Environmental Defects Bill, Effects Bill, I'd like it to be known, sir, that those of us who participated on the hunt owe a debt of gratitude to the man sitting in the Speaker's seat. However, some of us are better shots than others. And sir, well, you approach these matters either as looking at a resource or at a pest. And my puku says that no pest should be allowed to disappear without being devoured if it's good for you. Anyway, this bill actually is not good for us, sir. And I want to say, though, to the Minister for the Environment that us on this side of the House, especially those of us who have had family or friends, etc., go into the mining industry, into the exploration industry, are not antagonistic to the notion that we should use the natural resource endowments that we have in our country. We are not, we don't find it inimical, sir, that we should look for jobs so that we don't end up agreeing with the policies of the current government of exporting too many of our young people over to Perth and other such areas where they work in that mineral industry or that mining industry, but we remain reluctant to create our own mining industry. So I want to put that on the record, sir. That is not where we on this side of the House are actually coming from, because many of the roots of this party go back to the very industry, land-based, that this bill is endeavouring to cover off. I think it's important, sir, though, that we call the Minister on his track record in relation to this bill. Now, without a doubt, because he's an engineeringly qualified, he's a qualified engineer, should I say, sir, he has more than a passing political interest to do with environmental policy. And no one can be qualified in engineering without having a sense of how resources, environment, people and effects all work together. But this, sir, why I remain very reluctant, sir, about seeing much benefit from the process, the statutory process which this bill outlines is, for example, will we see a rerun of the water imbroglio? Now, we all knew how important, sir, the effects of poor water utilisation, sir, poor water utilisation and the negative effects of that, and we looked to this Minister to address that problem. And what we were served up, sir, was a dilution of what was a promising set of ideas. So it's not unreasonable for us, sir, to have severe doubts about the man's stewardship and, I guess, the man's gall in bringing this bill before the House. I could also go on to talk about land-based mining and exploration, sir, and obviously I have in mind there lignite. Now, we may disagree as a matter of public policy whether such exploration activities are going to increase the net economic benefit of our country or worsen our international obligations. And so these points are legitimate in this debate. So when we come back and say that we're not going to back this bill, it's not because we're unwilling to back the utilisation of our natural resources. But, sir, we are deeply fearful that this framework will not incentivise those who are investing capital, those who are taking risks, those who are in the business of exploration, in terms, sir, of addressing the negative economic, or dare I say, environmental externalities. And therein lies the rub, sir, that, yes, this is a framework the Minister is bringing forward, but how on earth can anyone have any confidence that, and it's a bit like the ill-fated transport legislation that the disgraced Stephen Joyce, now that he's ruined New Zealand's reputation through the train failure, that he's seeking to bring forward, sir, i.e. too much power descending to a subsidiary level of legislation. We will not know how robust or, sir, how actionable or how enforceable, sir, this particular set of rules, this particular set of standards are actually going to be, because these regulations, sir, that will flow from this legislation, and if it is to have any fangs, sir, that's where they'll be found, not in the motherhood and apple pie statements which will be in the long title, which are in the long title, and a host of other sort of florid terms. How is the public to derive any confidence that when things go wrong, the people perpetrating the wrongdoing will be held accountable? And there, sir, lies the major weakness of this bill. Now, sir, there's a philosophical debate as to whether or not legislation ought to create a strict and highly prescriptive criteria which can be enforceable. This bill does not seek to do that. What this bill seeks to do, sir, is dilute and water down the raison d'etre of the Resource Management Act. It draws a distinction between the agenda of growing economic output and also, sir, trying to safeguard the environment. And it calls for a balancing act. Well, who is going to do the balancing? Who is going to do the balancing? The balancing is going to be done by the regulator. Who's the regulator? The regulator is that minister sitting over there, sir. And it's not unreasonable for us to say, let's look at the man's track record in respect of two major types of natural resources. Now, it may be, sir, that the minister thinks, look, this is a more efficient way for us to manage the effects of this exploration activity. Well, sir, efficiency actually has to be measured against not just confidence but effectiveness. And the public have every right to demand, sir, that we test the effectiveness through an open, democratic, parliamentary-based process, not in shady drafting, sir, amongst officials who more than likely will suffer political pressure to come up with a level of regulation which not only simplifies, because simplification, sir, is not necessarily a bad thing, but when we suffer dilution and the ability to enforce environmental standards is written so far down that no court, no legal organisation, sir, as a part of the judiciary is capable of enabling a citizen or a group offering its services on behalf of a citizen to actually hold them accountable. And that is a deep constitutional point. Why on earth, if this area is so big, as the Minister for the Environment has just described it, why on earth has he taken this path of least resistance? We wouldn't tolerate it, sir, on land-based with land-based activities. And the sad thing, sir, is that there are fantastic resources out in the ocean environment. And on that point, the Minister and I probably agree. I personally would like to see the development of that iron sand stretching from Ngā Motu, New Plymouth, right up to somewhere near the Kaipara Harbour. And, sir, I think it's a fantastic idea that we should seek investment. I would have preferred to see it, sir, in the form of our SOEs investing something like that. But if we have a set of environmental standards that are that doubtful or dubious, then we're only building, sir, we're not building a fast flight into development. We're building more roadblocks, more fear, and you spread, sir, in the community severe anxiety, and that actually incentivises them to slow the process down, not to quicken it, sir. So that's a small example where I think most members of the House would see great benefit if we could extend on what Taharo did, sir, the Māori hapu in Ngāti Mahuta near the township of Taharo, when they sought to move ahead with the export of iron sand. So that's a small example where we do need an industry around that type of natural resource natural resource category, sir. But don't believe by coming up with this threadbare piece of legislation where the majority of the decision making is going to be done through regulation that you're going to build a constituency within the garden variety kiwi, sir, to actually improve and increase the pace of this exploration. It's going to have the opposite effect, and you're going to have people who actually don't want, Mr. Minister, to see that kind of industrial exploration worsen the sense of ill will about it. And I think that's a tragedy with this, sir. The tragedy is it's going to have the opposite consequence, yet many of us on this side of the House, sir, are very keen to see such exploration and activities happen, but only happen when we have a framework that is transparent, that shows accountability, and does not have the effect of looking as if it's riddled with weasel words and it's sneaky. Because when it's sneaky, it only will enhance the fears of those who in many cases are just as well organised as those who are taking the risk and putting the capital together. So I think, sir, it's going to have the opposite impact at a time where on this side of the House we're willing to explore ways to actually enhance jobs and grow wealth through a clever and defensible utilisation of our natural resource endowment. Unfortunately, this bill will have the opposite impact, Mr. Speaker.
David Clendon.